Welcome to Boundless Pursuit, a weekly podcast providing motivation, entertainment, and education to anglers and outdoorsmen. I hope that the stories you'll find here will encourage you to chase your passion more fervently, to open your mind to new opportunities and perspectives. Your engagement and feedback is critical to the growth of this show, and I would love to hear your suggestions on topics or potential guests. You can reach me at boundlesspursuitfishing@gmail.com or at my website, www.boundless-pursuit.com. That's where you'll find all related articles, media, and merchandise. Please remember, the show will gain traction from your support. Be sure to like, comment, and share this podcast to your friends and connections. I'm your host, David Graham. Now let's get on to today's episode. Today's guest is an exciting young multi-species fisherman that is on a serious upward trajectory. And given the energy that this guy projects on his social accounts, I knew that he would deliver. Kai Richardson is part of the Uncle Larry Outdoors crew. And if you don't know who these guys are, you've got to check them out, because this is a group of young dudes full of energy that are putting in some serious work. And Kai just catches all kinds of crazy fish, from monstrous bass, big snook, tarpon, grouper, just everything the guy can get his hands on. And what I really love about the guy, he's taking a very relatable and budget-friendly approach to all of this. He's doing a lot of it on foot. He's doing a lot of it by kayak. He's doing it in a way that I think most people can relate to, but on top of that, it's the quality of the fish that he's catching. And it's the energy that he does it with that's so infectious. It's just the authentic level of energy and enthusiasm that the guy injects into every video and post that he makes that makes him so enjoyable to watch. And I knew as soon as I started seeing this guy's stuff popping up all over the place, I thought to myself, that's a guy that I have got to talk to. And if you spend any amount of time on fishing social media pages, you've probably run across the video of him catching a massive bass out of his kayak in the background of one of his buddies' catches. Probably one of the most purely entertaining videos that I have ever seen. So obviously we discussed this video and more, along with just the growth of the brand of Uncle Larry Outdoors and just the community that they're building, the team that they've formed. And during the episode, we even get a really awesome cameo from his teammate and his partner, and really one of the masterminds behind Uncle Larry Outdoor, Eric Guarino. So just between the three of us, the whole entire episode was just a really awesome vibe. It was probably one of the most entertaining and engaging and just fun conversations that I've had with any of the people that I've brought on so far. These guys are on one hell of a come up, and this conversation met all of my expectations and exceeded them. Definitely one of the most energetic and entertaining conversations so far. You won't want to miss this one. This was an awesome, awesome conversation. But, all right, Kai, well, what's going on, dude? I'm glad to finally get to talk to you. I've been following your stuff for a while, and you seem like one of the more active guys out there. It seems like every day, I don't know if you're just strategic in when you're posting, but it looks like, and I'm jealous of, you always seem like you're finding some time to be outside, whether you're catching a fish or not. But yeah, man, how's it been going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I can't complain. It's nice that it looks like that, at least.
Yeah.
Because these days, man, I only really get to fish on the weekends. You know what I mean? Me and my boys, we're working pretty much, Monday through Friday. I work 9 to 6. So now that, the time changed, I get a little bit more time, after 6 o'clock to get out now. But before that, really, unless I'm doing some night fishing, I was only really able to get out on the weekends unless I called out, which I did.
I'm sick.
3 months. Yeah.
They hear the drag burning in the background. Yeah, I'm sick.
Yeah. The snuggle.
It's funny. I can relate. It's different. I'm in a supervisor position, and I have my people that call out all the time. I'm like, if y'all are just going out fishing, just tell me that. I'm gonna understand. It's fine. It's your time. Enjoy your time. I need y'all coming back energized. But that's funny. I can totally relate. This has been a slow year for me. I've gotten out once, twice. It's probably the slowest start to a new year that I've had in I don't even know how long.
So I'm already kind of predicting, at least for me, this isn't about me. Again, like what I was telling you about. Don't let me get too far. You're the star attraction here.
Yeah, no, okay.
But I'm already kind of predicting. I think this is going to be one of those years where I don't get out much, but I feel like when I do get out, like I've got some plans. Like I'm hoping this will be like I don't get out much, but when I do, it'll be impactful. So who knows?
Yeah.
You need those kind of years, but I don't know, man. It seems like every time I'm looking at like you got like those stories, like when I'm on Instagram and I see like some people have posted stories. Every time I see yours, I know I got to click it because it's always like a feel good. Like it didn't even necessarily like it's maybe you saw a UFO in the air. I know I saw that one recently. It's your theories about what's going on in the world, but you always just seem like you're having a good time. I'm like, you know what? Good energy is like infectious, and I need every now and then I need a dose of that. But yeah, dude. Yeah, well, I appreciate you. Some people they only share when they're catching a fish. It isn't those little times, but in any sense, it seems like lately, like I don't remember how long I've been following you. It isn't that long, but I've been watching close enough that it seems like, dude, you're like on some serious upward trajectory. Not that that's what's most important. Not that you're like a follower chaser, but I mean, when I look at your stuff, the content, it makes sense because, you've had, I guess if we're going to start anywhere, we'll start with that most recent viral moment of yours. Because, dude, that video of you catching that fish, I showed my wife that video. I showed my kids that video. It's everywhere I'm looking. I'm like, this is like the best thing I've ever seen. So for people who don't know what we're talking about, you take it away. Just kind of walk me through that day because it's basically a video of you catching this colossal bass. But it's like you couldn't have, like, I don't know, planned that better. But tell me about that day.
Yeah, man, that day is crazy. So like I woke up that morning just on a different energy. My boy E is sitting right here next to me, and
What's
he can
up?
share a lot of this as well. One of the founding members of Uncle Larry's right there. We were basically I had went out that morning with just a newfound like passion. Eric had just caught like a freaking, I don't even know how big, like a 12, 13, like who knows, might have been a teenager. You know what I mean? Like that week. So in my brain, I'm like, you know what I mean? As a fisherman, especially with the bass fishing, it's like, all right, they're starting to move up. It's that time of year, it's February. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? Like now is the time that, those big ones, you really got a chance at hooking the fish of a lifetime. So I just woke up that morning just inspired, you know what I mean? And I just wanted to catch a giant. And I went out to a spot. Was I had a pretty good morning. I caught a few and broke my rod on like a 6-pounder. And at that point it was like, damn, all right, do I call it a day? Do I go buy another rod and come back out here and keep fishing? And went to Bass Pro, bought a rod, came back, started fishing again. And me and the guys had a plan that evening to go out and do some filming and try and get some content with these Bassman spinner baits. Shout out to Glenn Casey, man. Good guy, sent us some spinner baits that he makes all the way in Australia.
Oh, man.
And, you know what I mean? Just, let us loose kind of thing. Like, just go do your thing. And, we wanted to go out and, kind of get some content for him. And mind you, this is like the first planned trip that we've made with Eric's A7. He has the camera that we're now using. He could probably tell you a little bit more in regards to that. But, we basically went out there to, try and film what we do basically on the weekends all the time.
Right.
And we had this plan to go to a spot that we had never been to before. And, just Google Maps it. It looked good, wasn't accessible from land. So we knew that, there was a good chance that it was probably pretty freaking good. And we
I've seen that in some of y'all's stuff where it's like, you know what I like? The reason I like gravitate towards your stuff, I will scroll past somebody. Their whole page can be nothing but giant fish. But if I don't see some sort of depiction on what got you there, you've lost me. So, like, I love to see the ones where y'all are, like, dragging kayaks through hell. I know you're working to get in there. I'm like, see, that's relatable. Like, to somebody that's looking for, like, inspiration, that's like, I don't know, man. When you see, like, the super clean-cut dudes holding up but a bunch of giant fish, I'm like, what is this guy, a millionaire? Like, can I do this? But the people that are... Oh my god! But oh my gosh! And I don't want to get ahead of myself. Because it's the relatable factor that I love, and it's like the excitement that you show when you catch the fish. But I had to jump in there because you talk about it was inaccessible. I mean, to some, I think there's just a willingness factor because some people don't want to. They don't want to get muddy. They don't want fish slime on their new kicks. I don't know. But I've seen the pictures of y'all pulling the kayaks through the grass and the mud and the crap. And it's funny that you said you'd broken your rod earlier in the day and that you left that detail in there. I don't know about y'all. Like, for me, like, some of the best fish I've ever caught, like, it seems like the biggest and best fish always seem like they're right on the other side of some kind of shit. Like, it's like you hit that fork in the road where you can decide to go home or you, like, grind it out and then get rewarded.
We can relate to that for sure. For sure. It really does seem to manifest itself during those more trying times, you know what I mean? It just, just the circumstances, it's a bit more than coincidental.
Oh, yeah.
That we've noticed at this point, you know what I mean? That's all I can say about that, really.
The fact that it was new water is pretty cool too. You'd mentioned you had just dipped into new water. I love, like, that's my favorite thing to do in fishing is like Google Maps scouting and dipping into new water. It's easy when you find a spot that's got big fish to just, like, become married to that spot and never leave it.
Yeah.
But,
sure.
But anyway, like I told you, I threw you off your game. You had but y'all had met up and then found the spot and dipped in there. So I don't know. This is the evening, right? This is late in the day?
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'd say probably
2, 3 o'clock.
Which now? Yeah, like 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
I don't want to go off on a tangent at all. But one very interesting thing we've noticed during this spawn season in Florida is that every giant, quote unquote, that we've caught down here, it's 11. Now this one was at 2, but same concept. It was 11 to 2. That window of time, middle of the day, not the morning bite, not the evening bite. Every giant that we've caught down here this spawn season has been middle of the day, and this one was no different. But that's just an interesting point.
That is interesting. Yeah,
very interesting. I remember Butch Brown saying that too. I had brought that up to Eric after he had caught his. It was like, man, I think there's something to this, like, midday bass fishing that I've noticed, and it's not like it's almost like an accidental finding, and then it was reconfirmed when I came across that Butch Brown clip. But I was thinking to myself, like, of all of the big fish that we've ran into down here, like, we're not the best at waking up early. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the times that we have woken up early, it's like it hasn't really been anything, like, crazy. You know what I mean? For the most part, to make us want to, like, wake up at 7 a.m. and be there first light kind of thing. And I just noticed that a lot of those interactions that we were having with big fish were, like, midday for some reason. And apparently, like, I don't know, there's something to that with the bass fishing specifically.
Yeah. Well, bass are such a, like, I don't do a lot of bass fishing, but I do enough, and it's clear why they're the most popular sport fish in fresh water, because you can pattern them in so ways. You can pattern the fish in so many ways. Like, they're smart. But I guess if a big fish is a smart fish, and the typical bass angler, if fish are getting pressured at all, they're getting pressured in the early morning and in the late evening, because that's just I don't know, that's common law among bass anglers. You got to get on the morning bite, you got to get in the evening bite. So that's the period they're getting the most pressure. Not that you were fishing a pressured area, because it looked like y'all probably were in mostly untouched water, but there's got to be something to that. The bigger fish probably know the fishermen are out in droves throwing that plastic in their face in the morning and in the evening.
Yeah. So they take advantage of that high sun. Yeah. Get out there and eat, and then dip back into the depths.
Especially during spawn season down here because these Florida bass, I mean, it's 65 degrees and they're cold, so they use that middle of the day to go out and sun themselves just like we do. They love it.
Yeah, definitely something to that aspect of it as well. When you think about the temperatures around this time of year and that they spawn during this time of year, I think there's definitely something to that too. Like their innate nature is to, I don't know, when they get that big, is to come out during that time for some reason and take advantage of that hour. Yeah, get a quick meal in and then go and chill and soak up that sun.
Sit under a
Yeah.
Well, I know we keep kind of like tongue in cheek saying it's a giant. People are like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like it's some sort of inside joke. How you memorize your favorite movie lines? Like it gets to a point where you've seen it enough times, you can sort of like recite it. Like that video, I'm like at that level with it because I watch it and I got to be like everybody else. And I got to find a way to link this, obviously, because we can't talk about it this much and not send people to it. But it was just hilarious the way that it plays out. And again, I don't want to cut out any of the lead up to the moment, but who was the guy that was actually in frame, like holding, it was a nice fish he had, but it just got.
That's our boy Johnny. It's the other founder.
I mean, you couldn't have stole his shine any harder. Felt bad for the guy. It's like one of those fake laughs. Like, that's great. Like, but I don't know. I mean, had y'all just been blasting fish all day up into that point? I mean, or was it?
I mean, not really. Like I said, I was out fishing for majority of the day up until that point, and I was catching them pretty good, but like it was nothing too crazy. You know what I mean? Like I hooked into a few good ones, but like nothing stupid. And like I said, we had never been to that specific pond before, so we were going in pretty blind. We had just gone in with the notion of, we're gonna try and catch a few fish on these spinner baits. You know what I mean? Hopefully they're biting the spinner baits. You know what I mean? We had worms tied on because we're looking at the place and all the vegetation and whatnot. And like, you can't go wrong with a big worm in Florida. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what majority of these giants come on. But we were just trying to have some discipline and try to commit to the spinner baits and get some shots. Get the shots that we needed. You know what I mean? For what we came out to do initially. And like I said, I can't stress enough that this was the first time that Eric had went out there with like the professional camera, like the DSLR, and like we had like said, all right, we're gonna get some fishing content with this camera, like, and try and do it like the right way kind of thing.
It usually doesn't work that way for me. I'm cursed when it comes to cameras. It's like as soon as I turn the camera on, all action is over. All action ends.
That's what I was telling. So I don't want to go. I don't want to go off on a huge tangent here, but just to set the scene from my perspective, I'm 26. I've been doing the fishing film thing for 13 years since I was a child, since when YouTube fishing wasn't even really a thing. And for all the years I've done it, that is just a golden rule. The second that GoPro dies, beep, 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 you hear that GoPro die, you know big bite's coming. And I cannot even begin to tell you the amount of time that's happened to me. And now a little bit later in my life, I've been on a ton of fishing shoots. It's one of the things I do to pay the bills. And same deal. As soon as the camera goes on, the action. I'm trying to stress this to them. Like, filming fishing is one of the single hardest things to pull off, especially on a DSLR style like that. So, to go in there and have it happen like that. And it'd be the first time that, as Uncle Larry's, I've went out with them and done the DSLR thing, for 4 years. We've done GoPros, phone footage, because we've all been fishing. We're all a part of it in that way. But it was just kind of energy where we got together on a business level and we were like, okay, I have this camera that I use for work. This is what we want to become work. So let's treat it like work and go out there and just, mess around, see what happens today. And, like I said, it went in there and two cats. Cats.
Well, I've got a huge admiration. In fact, I almost want to have somebody come on to this program that's not even the guy behind the rod. Like, I want the camera people, like, to talk about it, because and I've mentioned this in previous recordings already, where it's like, it seems like a lot of the guys that are the most passionate about this, especially the multi-species guys, and we'll get into some of y'all's other endeavors that transcend beyond bass soon, but almost all of them, without fail, the guys especially that do the most have some kind of artistic background, whether it's straight up like pencil art, whether it's the ability to build and fabricate, whether it's metal fabrication, carpentry, musicians. I've had a lot of guys that are musicians, like that's their other thing, or people that can like, because I've got a major like fascination with people who are good at film editing, because that's like and I've dabbled in it a little bit. In a side note, I'm working on a little film thing myself with my buddy Josh Dolan. Now he's the camera guy, he's the editor. It's like his thing too, all about drones and underwater and this and that. But when I've had to hold the camera, it's like a whole other skill set to have like the discipline to like be present in what's happening and capture everything. So I love y'all's stuff, and I think I don't know, man. Y'all do a great job of keeping it rolling when there's all this chaos. Because sometimes you want to like see it with your eyeballs instead of through a little lens. But yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So,
Eric's been doing it a long time.
Yeah,
man.
I mean,
long time.
I've been doing it for so long, and for a long time, it was just me filming and fishing. I had my own channel, did my own thing throughout high school and college, and then I ended up putting it down for a little bit because I got really tired of it being just me, about me. Well, I was just sick of it. I was like, if I'm ever gonna come back to this, it needs to be something that transcends me, that is bigger than me, that is a community, is a movement. And when Johnny came to me, and I've known Johnny, the third person in that video, since I was 6 years old. He's one of the only friends I had growing up that fished. And when he came to me with this idea for Uncle Larry Outdoors, it was his conception. From the start, I was just like, dude, this is what I want. I want to put time into this with you and use my various, because I've been a part of the fishing industry for a while, so use my connections in the industry and just use my video and my editing. Because I always told them, dude, the Uncle Larry Outdoors edits come out the way they do because I have the most fun making them, because they're the realest, because there's no gimmicks, no real, like, portraying fishing in the way that I want to see it portrayed out into the world, and portraying fishing in a way where if a kid is going to get into it through one of our videos, they're getting into it for the right reasons. So that's why these videos, I feel like, are coming out the way they are these days, is just because it's all of it combined. It's not just me, it's not just Kai, it's not just Johnny. When that combines together, I have more fun doing these videos than I do any gig I'm getting paid for. Anytime I'm out filming just myself, it's that combined energy that really make it what it is, I think.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm coming at you from the vantage point of the consumer, you know what I mean? I'm the audience guy. And I don't know, I mean, everybody's got their thing they're more interested in. I appreciate what like the solo guys do, because that's a whole other type of challenge where you're alone and you got to focus on doing the fishing and capturing yourself. But I like when there's a dialogue between like you know what I mean? Like, whether it's verbal or it's just an energy, when there's two like people that are, I don't know, working together, disagreeing, agreeing, working with each other, working against each other, whether it's a competition or two people working together for a common goal. Like, I like that. So I'm right there with you on that. But man, that video, so I want to get obviously to that, but it's got all the elements that you want, because there's like a drama, there's like a part where you're sort of wondering what's coming next. There's the comedy element, because you can't watch it without laughing. But it's like, and then there's like the shock factor, because it's like, all right, is this guy just screwing around back there screaming and acting silly? And then it's like screaming PB, like the way you yelled PB, veins were popping out of your neck. And like,
man.
So then you're like, okay, what is this dude doing? Is he acting like a jackass? Like, is he full of it? Like, but then when the fish comes out of the water, you're like, oh my God. But but I don't know, man. Just from your words as the guy that's in the background, like, what's going through your mind? Are you just forgetting like are you forgetting the fact that somebody's filming? Are you like laser focused on what's like, has all other things blurred out and like become like dark to you and you're only focused on the fish? Like what's going through your mind during that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, man, it was like, I don't know. I was just so focused in that moment. Like I got that bite and I felt it. Like, and it's just, those bites when it's a good fish. You know what I mean? And I don't know quite how good it is because I haven't seen the fish yet. But I felt that initial. I casted that spinnerbait out to the end of like this bog. Like this place is really interesting. There's like a bog of vegetation surrounding the whole entire shoreline, and some parts are thicker than others. You know what I mean? In terms of how far they span out from the shoreline. And in some points, like you can put your kayak paddle through this bog, and there's like 4 foot of water, if not more, under this vegetation. So these like live under that shit majority of the time. We're assuming, you know what I mean? It's because like what reason would they have to come out if they don't need to? You know what I mean? If they could just live under this shit. And I'm just casting off of this point, and I let it drop to the bottom. I just remember in my head vision, like if there's gonna be a bass there, it's gonna be like hanging somewhere in that area off of the point of how that bog is setting up. You know what I mean? Let it drop, and I reeled it in, and I mean like probably 3 or 4 revolutions, just boom, and I'm trying to catch up to it. And it's so weird in the kayak. I've been fishing in a kayak like that for so long. And I've lost so many good fish because it's so hard to fish like that. But I've learned over time that like you gotta catch up to them because they get so much momentum on you. You know what I mean? Especially those big fish, because when you hook into them, you immediately start coming straight to them.
Yeah,
and you want to make sure you get a good hook set into them. So I had like I think an 8-to-1 beer Corrado, so like I could catch up to his ass. I just remember trying to catch up to him, and then I felt him go down again, and I was like, "Oh, it's a giant." That's when I started saying, "Giant," and he came up and did that little tail slap thing, and I couldn't quite see how big it was at that time, but like as you can see in the video, I was pretty much all in at that point, and then this thing, I just remember seeing this thing come up behind Johnny, and the whole time Johnny hasn't even seen the fish at this point. And in the video you can see him just talking to Eric. Like, this is a giant. Like,
it's a giant.
It's just we're so used to it now. You know what I mean? With each other, just catching big fish and shit. It's just like another 7-pounder. Like, giant. And I guess I think Johnny like heard. He's never heard me like that before. You know what I mean? And after I didn't stop screaming just got more and more profound as I saw like what was on the end of my line, and he finally like, let me turn around and see what this motherfucker's screaming about.
Yeah.
And then he thought, oh, it's a giant.
Yeah.
I remember in that period right there, like when we all had recognized like what was going on and taking place, I remember just like shit just like slowed down, and like there was those brief pauses where I was looking back at Eric and Johnny just like trying to make sure this was like real life. You know what I mean? And they're seeing what I'm seeing, but I'm so focused on this fish, man. Like I said, from just so many different trips of being out there in that yak and losing fucking giants, man. I'm just so focused on trying to stay tight and keep that tension in that kayak because I just feel the weight of this fish, and he's just pulling me wherever he wants. Like I'm turning this way, and the weight of the fish is pulling me the other way. And I remember just like I just kept figure eighting. I'm like, yo, just gotta fucking keep him tight. Just gotta keep him tight. And then he came around, and I remember, you know, when those bass come up and they just like stay on the surface and don't do anything, like their mouths just kind of like he might jump, but he's not quite there yet. And I remember in my head, I'm like, yo, I just gotta grab. I just gotta grab. And I pull the rod this way, and I just scoop his ass up. And I grabbed that bass like
the death grip.
Oh my God, yeah, but he wasn't going nowhere.
Yeah,
he wasn't going nowhere, man. And I remember just picking that thing up, and just like I've dreamt of like that moment. You know what I mean? Because bass fishing is what, like, you know, that's what started my love for fishing. Like, that's what really, you know what I mean? And I think that's for most guys. You know what I mean? But I just remember, especially being a kid from Jersey, just like dreaming of the moment that, you know, regardless of whether I have a scale or not, I hook into a bass that I know without a reasonable doubt is a DD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like just what that moment would feel like for me, what I would do, how I would react. And it was just like in that moment, I kind of just like, once I had them and I realized like what I had just did, I think I just like blacked. Like I literally think like my soul like left my body, like astral projected for a second.
I could tell you were attempting to formulate words, and in your mind maybe you were communicating, but all that came out was a blood-curdling scream.
That's all.
That was the best part.
That's all I could do, man, because I just like it was a surreal moment like that.
It looked like excitement. It also looked like you're about to cry. It was great.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's a lot leading up to that fish, man. Like I dreamed of living in Florida and doing that shit. You know what I mean? Growing up, looking at Roland Martin out on Okeechobee. Like, that's all I remember being a kid from Jersey. Roland Martin on Okeechobee throwing spinnerbaits, catching freaking giants. You know what I mean? Like, that was like Florida bass fishing for me up until coming down here, and then just like really being able to immerse myself in this environment and learn it, you know, coming from that environment and just coming to that realization that it's everything that I thought it would be. Yeah. And like not even close, like way crazier than I could have ever imagined, honestly. You know what I mean? Just
y'all managed to somehow like compact 10,000 different emotions into like how long is the clip? 30 seconds? I mean, it's short, but so much happens in such a short, and I'm trying my best to describe to people listening what it is, because I think the comedy side of it is the funny part, because I would relate it to like a funny, like a news segment where there's like the person in the background that's actually stealing the thunder because they're acting silly, because you're like, there's a brief moment of like narration because, you know, your buddy had just caught a fish. He's like taking the lure out of its mouth. And then you just sort of see this kayak awkwardly like coming into frame. The fish pulls you into frame, like, and you're spinning and doing circles in the background. You're still not quite the star like attraction, but you're back there and there's enough going on that it's like like you're trying to look past the guy that's in the frame. And then but anyway, I love the tone changes in y'all's voices, that it's like there's like an element of sarcasm and like, oh, it's a giant, and then there's like the moment of realization where all of a sudden all three of you are on the same wavelength and realizing like what's at hand, and it's like everything just changes. And then including the people that are watching, like me from my phone, like I'm on the edge of my seat, my phone's this close to my face. I'm like, what is this? But the look of the fish.
I remember going back and just like a few nights ago, I was watching the clip again.
Oh, I've watched it so many times.
There's like a part where, you know, I'm saying it's a giant, and then you see the tail flip where, you know, it kicks up all of that water, but you don't quite see the fish. And like Eric, this motherfucker, he's caught a lot of big bass. And I remember in that clip, I can hear him. That was the first time he was like, ah! Because he seen it, was like, oh,
yeah.
And then it came up, and then he screamed like, ah! And he was like, and when Eric screams like that, you know, it's
that's proper validation.
And he's got the camera, so I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Maintain discipline.
Oh
That's
man.
hard. You deserve a
Oh.
lot of credit for that. Like the guy behind the camera is always the camera person's always the unsung hero of those moments when they actually get caught. Like they're like the discipline that you had to like make sure not to lose this was like grade A phenomenal. So kudos to you for that. But
I mean, you want to talk about blacking out? You know, I was almost. You know, it's funny. It's almost like how I describe it is, as I was looking through the lens, watching it happen, I almost felt the millions of eyes that were also about to be watching.
yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I just, you know, it's just like I'm looking at it happen. Like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So
I remember him saying that at the end of the day. He's like, we hadn't even seen the shit yet. Or we might have on like the camera. We probably watched it back. But he was like, bro, I think this is the best thing I've ever recorded.
Well, there's like
we have ever recorded.
There's the little subtleties in it. Like I would venture to say, or I'll go so far as to say, if you would have been on a fancy bass boat, it wouldn't have been that. It wouldn't have been the same thing. If you would have been in a high end. I'm not a big kayak guy, but like you know,
and a whole beer.
like, yeah,
but it looks like, and I'm not hating on your gear. I like the low key
sure.
style,
That's
but I'm like, I'm a
Oh.
canoe guy, so I can't say I fish out of a canoe.
Yeah,
but
you get it out of mud. You already know,
Yeah.
brother.
But it's like it looks like it's I don't know, and maybe it's the beanie pulled down over the top of your head. It's like there's little
out there, just wet pants and shit. You know what I mean?
There's
That
the
was
little
really
key
close.
details that make it all the more important.
Another thing about that, and it showed just like you alluded to, that was really supposed to be the practice shoot because we had an actual shoot
Yeah.
up later that week that we were planning out and we were going to go do in the salt. So that was supposed to be, okay, let's just get out there, the three of us with the A7 on an afternoon and see what happens and get good with, you know, filming with this camera and like, you know, getting certain shots and taking direction and giving audio and all that stuff. It was just supposed to be the trial for that, really. So we weren't like, you know, but we knew that it was untapped water,
And it was a possibility.
So that's why we did it there. But
It's just crazy that it all played out the way that it played out. Even him being in the positioning that he was in, to be able to capture that moment with all of us
Yeah.
in it. It's just like that's the stuff he was talking about earlier that you just can't plan and usually doesn't pan out that way. You know, very rarely do those moments get caught on camera like that, let alone, you know, a fish like that. Like it's crazy.
Well, the fish itself, and that's what's funny is we're talking about the moment, we're talking about everything other than the fish, which I like, which the fish is obviously the cherry on the top.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that because the fish itself is like, man, it's a gnarly looking, like dark, scarred up. And like that fish looks like it could tell, if it could speak, some wild stories because it just looks like this old grizzled like warrior.
Yeah,
that has been through some stuff because it's a gnarly looking, just the dark tones of the fish. I'm like, that is a wicked looking animal.
She was pristine though, man. She was pristine. Not a mark on her, not a rip in her tail. She was like her
She's so
lip was
dark.
good. Her lips were a little like ripped up, and I don't know if that's from like bedding or just, you know what I mean, whatever. She looked like she might have been eating like some crawls or something. But are you still with me?
Yeah, I got you. We blanked out for a second. We're good.
I gotta put this on the charger.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I've never really ran into a bass that looked like that, aside from like, you know, how fat she was, just like how dark, and she just like a freshwater grouper or something like that, man. Just like she could have been a species of her own. Like I said, that place, the way it's set up with that mat of like bog, it's like that fish. The odds of her having had contact with another human are very, very slim. Like she don't have to come out into the daylight unless she wants to. And I think that's part of the reason that she was like that dark too. Like that's one of those fish that just lives under that mat. And like, again, the stars just aligned and she just happened to be out feeding on the edge of that mat that day. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And that's just like,
that's the crazy allure that I love about fishing. This like, it doesn't matter how dialed you think you are and how much gear and whatnot you have. Like, if that moment is not meant to happen at that time, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't force feed those fish. It doesn't matter what you have or what you're doing. Like, it just has to happen when it happens, and it just happened to happen. You know?
It's a good mentality to have, because you got to think how many people will like dip into a similar environment like that, or a similar pond that may have the same kind of fish, and then they get skunked or draw a blank and go, that place sucks. Move on. Because people want things to come so much easier. So it's good, like, when you know, like, the potential is there for maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I always think of people who like don't realize how, like, what proximity. I even think of myself sometimes, like, what kind of things have I like gone past that, like, I don't know. You know, you wonder about how many fish you missed that you didn't realize you missed after you catch the big ones like that. It's like, man, what else has been down there? But it's always a good perspective changer when you do get blessed with those monsters. But anyway.
Nice.
All right. Well, before all that shit went down, I was starting to segue out of the bass thing, because I knew that like that was like a real big one that I wanted to talk about. But I don't want people listening to think I'm only talking to a bass fisherman, because when you look at your page, y'all get around, and I love that. Like, I'm all about specialists as well, like people that are like super dialed in on one thing. Like, I got a lot of admiration for all types of anglers, but y'all do a lot of awesome stuff, and you do it in a way, again, as mentioned before, very relatable. A lot of it's on foot, a lot of it's in a kayak, a lot of it's like something that, like, if people are willing to put in a little bit of work, they themselves can also do it. But I mean, I know y'all are catching tarpon, you're catching all kinds of inshore species, the snook. You know, I guess one of the ones that y'all have been getting that's of a lot of interest to me is those gag grouper. But I mean, y'all get around, so I don't really know to start there. But I mean, I don't know. Just, you mentioned earlier that you had come here from New Jersey, so maybe just walk me through that transition. I mean, how'd you end up here? What is like your kind of perspective on here versus there?
Yeah,
the whole picture.
Yeah, so I've been down here for almost 3 years now. I think we came down. 2020, January 2020? Or 2021, I mean?
January of 2021.
January 2021, yeah. So, that was during the pandemic, basically, around that time, I think. Yeah, no, the pandemic was still strong. Mm-hmm. And that was really one of the leading, like, points for me to get out of New Jersey at that time, because things were just getting a little crazy up there, you know what I mean? And with my job and whatnot, there's a lot of unsurety, and you know, I was at a lower point in my life, going through some personal things, relationships and shit like that, family, just a storm of everything, really. And Eric and Johnny had came up with the plan to just book it down here, and he hit up Eric, and they sent it down, and they were already down here for a few weeks before they hit me up, and like, yo, man, we need a third guy. We're gonna try and get a crib down here, and keep doing Uncle Larry's thing. I'm like, well, I can't turn up, that opportunity to come to Florida. I had just renewed my lease at the time in this freaking loft apartment that I could not afford. And like, it's just like, all right, well, it's like now or never for you to just kind of like let all the shit go and kind of, get a fresh start almost. You know what I mean? Go somewhere new, change the scenery, kind of, just try and find myself again. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I was at in life. And, it goes back so much deeper than just like that. There's so many things like leading up to that point of me getting down here to Florida, like how I met Eric, and Johnny initially and Uncle Larry's guys. It's like I said, it's pandemic time. I was working for a solar company. I was doing inspections at the time, getting to people's roofs, getting on their attics, and checking their electrical system, seeing if it's viable for solar. And this was, I want to say, March 2020. So it was like really the beginning of the pandemic. And I remember one day, all my jobs had canceled. You know what I mean? This is like when things were really starting to get like crazy. No one knew what the heck was going on. All the grocery stores were getting overrun. And I just remember pulling up to house after house, and everybody was like, yeah, no, like, I'm not letting you in my crib. I remember calling my supervisor, like, yeah, all my jobs are canceled today. So like, what do you want me to do, man? And he had no answers for me. He's like, just stand by. Like, I'll let you know what's going on, kind of thing. And I always used to keep rods in my van, and I, in between jobs or whatnot, go on Google Maps, and wherever I was at in New Jersey, I'd be all up and down the state. I'd go find some water, and that was what better time than a day all my jobs canceled. I'm like, I'm getting paid to fish today, so they let me know what's going on. I pull up at the nearest lake, Speedwell Lake in Morristown, New Jersey. I'm like, oh, this looks like some juice.
Yeah.
I pull up and I'm out there fishing. I can't even remember what I'm throwing. I'm either throwing a Kitech. I think I'm throwing a Kitech. Go 4-inch Kitech and trying to get dialed. I'm like, oh, it's got to be some bass in these laydowns and stuff. It was a juicy looking little North Jersey pond. And this guy comes up to me, and he's with his lady. He sees me out there fishing. He's like, yo, man, you know what you're doing. And, we get to talking, chopping it up, and he ends up telling me, he's like, oh, yeah, what are you fishing for? I'm like, bass. Well, hate to burst your bubble, but ain't no bass in here. It's just pickerel and rainbow trout. Big pickerel and rainbow trout. And, we get to talk and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, you should follow my son's page on Instagram. He's got a fishing page on Instagram. He does some cool stuff on YouTube and whatnot. And at first, I didn't really think much of it. You know what I mean? Just thought he was like trying to get me to follow his 12-year-old son page on Instagram. So, yeah. And I get home later that night, and I check out, Uncle Larry Outdoors, the page he told me to go check out. I'm like, yeah, this kid looks familiar. And go back like a week before that, I was just watching. He's got a video on the YouTube channel. Is this still on us? The pickerel video is on. Yeah, he had his personal YouTube at the time, and he had caught like a state record chain pickerel. And I was just watching that video like the week before that, and then I meet his dad. That guy was his dad at Speedway, and he links me up with these guys. And I think we might have fished a few months after that. I drove up to Long Island, where Johnny, the other member of Unks, is founding member, and we went out to Orient Point and did some fluke fishing for sea robins and whatnot. And after that, it was just kind of written in stone. Like it's just I think a subconscious understanding that like we were all on the same page, and I really aligned with the message of what they were preaching with Unks at this time, because they had started Uncle Larry's way before, I had came into the picture. But I just felt like aligned with what they were doing and the message behind, Unks, and I really did want to be a part of it after, really getting out with those guys and meeting them and seeing, what the fuck they were about, and just, finding other, because I didn't fish with a lot of people at that time either. That's the other part of it. It's like I really started like fishing during the pandemic. I had always fished. My dad took me fishing since I was like 8 years old, and I always had like a different kind of love for it, but I never really took it seriously. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like a hobby for me, or a way to spend some time with my dad, or as I got older, it became like just a peace of mind, really, for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know I had liked it. I was fairly good at it because, I was catching fish, but like I never really taken it like seriously. Like, can I like do this, and like make a living from it somehow, or like make it my career? You know what I mean? Like, is that a reality for me?
Right.
And I was really kind of like, I guess, playing with that idea at that time during the pandemic after, I had lost my job when I had all this time on my hands to just fish. And that's what I had just dedicated all my time to. Because, like I said, that time was a real rough period for me. So along with, being able to go out and explore and find this new water and get better and harness my skills and whatnot, it was just a time to be out there and kind of get away from all of the craziness that was going on at that time, because it was definitely taking a toll on me. You know what I mean? I think most of us, you know what I mean? That was a pretty crazy period for most people. But yeah, man, they hit me up and was like, yo, you wanna come to Florida? And I freaking found somebody to take over my lease in Jersey. And Eric had to come back up here to get his, he had a bass boat, a 60-foot tracker. He had to come get that. And, we bummed it on the floor of my apartment for a few days as we, got everything packed up and whatnot. Had to go find a U-Haul trailer at this time. Like I said, heat in the pandemic, everybody is leaving New Jersey and New York and basically the entire Northeast to get away from the craziness.
Yeah.
So there was literally no U-Haul trailers in the tri-state area. They didn't have any in New York. They didn't have any in all of New Jersey, apparently. And the only one that they did have was in Philadelphia, PA, which was not too far from us, but far enough. About a hour and a half drive. So we're able to salvage a U-Haul trailer, go and get that thing, get everything packed up, and we just book it.
We even told them about the tow hitch.
Oh yeah. Wait, before I could get the U-Haul trailer, I drive a 05 GMC Yukon Denali. My dad bought that truck brand new in 05. And it's been in the family ever since. And since it's been in my ownership, it's deteriorated a bit. But with the grounds that that's what comes with the fishing. It's age. It's got a lot of mileage. We need movement. And up there in the Northeast, that fucking the salt and the ice, man. It ravages your vehicle.
You don't know about that.
It's bad. My whole undercarriage looks like it was underwater for 18 years or something like that.
Barnacles on it.
Yeah, dude, it's bad. I couldn't get my tow hitch off, long story short, because it was rusted to the freaking hitch. And I had to, this old Jamaican guy I used to use as a mechanic. Real good dude, but like one of those like in his backyard, kind of like probably not doing it the way he's supposed to be doing it, but he's gonna get you with the BGB kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I bring it to him because I'm like, I don't know who else the hell can get this hitch off of me within 24 hours because we got to be out of here. Like, I think we were, the day we happened to be leaving to come to Florida, I think it was Insurrection Day. I think it was January 6th. So this was
Insurrection.
It was Inauguration Day.
Oh, okay.
It was later. It was later.
Yeah.
Like end of January. It was inauguration, and we were trying to keep that in mind. We're like, yo, we got to go through DC, and like not trying to be anywhere near DC. So we got to be out of here before. What was it? I think it was January 21st or 22nd or whatever. But
getting PTSD.
Just even thinking about it is giving me anxiety. We felt like time was ticking. Like if we didn't get out of New Jersey before like, they weren't gonna let us out. It was over. That was over, man. But I took it to
to my old Jamaican boy, and he freaking puts a flame torch to this thing, and so getting it out somehow, some way, out there, freaking 30 minutes, banging this thing, flaming it. It just looked like a scene out of a movie, dude. It's crazy. But we get it off, get the right hitch on, man, and we freaking send it through the night, 18 hours down here to Tampa, man. And that trip within itself is a whole different story. We made it down here by the grace of God. Jesus took the wheel multiple times during that drive, for me specifically. I mean, speak for him. I was feeling. I was wild. I was chilling in my Jeep, but we made it. Jeep with 300,000 miles on it. Oh my gosh. We had no business driving these vehicles, man. Like my truck goes into, still to this day, my truck goes into reduced engine power mode.
Did you just break down in Tampa and say, "Well, guess that's where we're gonna live"?
Well, the funny that because as soon as we freaking got to Florida, I think like we were probably 4 or 5 hours away from Tampa.
We got separated. You went one way.
We got separated. I went one way, you went another way, and just like amazing timing. In Florida, I'm thinking we're here, fucking finally. All the trials and tribulations, like it's all behind. And man, I'm freaking driving, and I feel my wheel just. I hear this noise, just like this grinding, cracking, just. And it's just like, oh shit! And I pull over, dude, and my whole wheel bearings just like gone. My wheel's like this, like wobbling. And I'm like, what the hell? Like my whole bearing just exploded. So I had to ride that thing on the shoulder, like freaking 5 miles off the highway, off the exit, down this freaking, shopping plaza road to like the nearest mechanic shop to get that thing fixed so I could make it to the house, because Eric was already at that point probably like an hour plus away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, we were just trying to get to our destination, you know what I mean? And freaking decompress. But yeah, man, it was that whole journey down here leading up to that was just, it's crazy thinking back on it now. It's so much. But
yeah, that was like the latest version too, Like,
yeah. I'm just not trying to keep you here for another 2 hours.
Right, yeah. Well, it seems like there's a lot of Jersey transplants. I saw you recently fish with Jake, Dreamcatcher Jake. Do y'all go back? Did y'all go back from?
I was. So when I was 16 years old, so 10 years ago, making YouTube videos in Jersey, we would have conversations. You could go back 10 years ago and see these comments, and he was like 10 years old commenting on my videos, and even then, that kid was different. So
I fished with him twice, I think. We met up and we fished for longnose gar one time because he was trying to find the South Florida longnose gar. I mean, you can find them dime a dozen, I guess, in Tampa. They get a little weird. They just kind of cut off below Lake Okeechobee, like stop finding them. And then I don't remember, we did like snakeheads or something other than that. But yeah, I'd seen his stuff. Like he's got some stuff on the internet back when he was like this tiny little kid with thick glasses. You can still find his stuff. I didn't realize like in person, like I thought he was like kind of this small little guy, and then in person, I'm like, oh, okay, you're
not anymore.
Like, all right, you look like an athlete. Like,
Jack's a young man. He's a young man these days.
That's funny.
All grown up. Yeah, I love that kid. He's an original Uncle Larry's member as well.
Oh yeah.
All right, so Uncle Larry, I gotta jump in finally. Because I'm like thinking, like, what is Uncle Larry? Like, where does the name derive from? What is Uncle Larry?
Yeah, so
somebody's crazy uncle.
Yeah, not exactly. So I wish Johnny was here to explain this, really, but I'll do the best I can. So, Johnny had an Uncle Larry growing up.
So it's a real person.
Yes, absolutely, and. Uncle Larry was like a very early fishing influence on Johnny. And Johnny tells this one specific story of when he went out fishing with Uncle Larry. He had very bad what does he call it in your hands? What is it?
Arthritis
in your hands, and he couldn't do anything. And Johnny wanted to go. He's a young kid at the time. He wants to go take the boat out and do all this stuff. And Uncle Larry can't do any of those things. So they had settled for just fishing for snapper bluefish off his dock. But he remembers seeing how enthused and excited Uncle Larry was to even do that at that time, and it was really new perspective for Johnny. Like it doesn't matter, what situation you're in fishing wise, as long as you're out there doing it, it's a blessing. And but really the name Uncle Larry, so that means that everyone has that. Everyone has an Uncle Larry. Mm-hmm. Everyone has someone or something that showed them fishing. For me, it was my dad. For you, it was your dad. Everyone has it in some form or fashion. It's extremely, extremely rare that someone is to find fishing completely on their own. So that's what the name means in itself. But then, to take the story a little further, he had this rod. So when Uncle Larry passed away, he passed away like 10 plus years ago, Johnny's aunt told him to come over and go through all of his old fishing stuff and take whatever he wanted. And Johnny found this extremely old ultralight, like a really cool vintage rod, like probably a 4.5 foot rod. And we were doing a lot of trout fishing at the time. This is like 2016. And then, so Johnny, he actually got the rod redone. It says Uncle Larry's rod on it. There's a lot of history with that rod. But basically, the first time he took it out, my dad had given me a wooden trout net that his friend had hand carved for him like 40 plus years ago. And I went out there and, Johnny caught a trout on Uncle Larry's rod, and I netted it in that net. So that was just like a super cool full circle moment for us. And, there's a lot of full circle moments that happen through Uncle Larry's. But that was kind of the conception of like the first time that Uncle Larry's rod was in play and that stuff happened. And then 3 years later, in 2019, Johnny was working in Manhattan at the time. I was working on a podcast called Ike Live and for Professional Edge Fishing, Mike Iaconelli's company. I'm down in South Jersey. Yeah. And Johnny is in the city hating his job. He'd been going through a lot of personal stuff at the time as well. He's a fish out of water up there because, he doesn't want to be a part of that corporate lifestyle. He wants to be outside pursuing the same things that we are right now. And, in Manhattan is where he started Uncle Larry Outdoors. And he originally just made it as a page to connect with people in the outdoor space and to, meet some cool people, whatever. And, we'd already known each other forever and we always talked. And, early on he was showing me Uncle Larry's back when it had, 10 followers. And I'm like, this is a really cool idea. I think we should actually work on this and put some time into it. And then, over the next 4 years, it turned into what it turned into. But the foundation of it was really just, we were adding a lot of new members at the time. Like the people that we follow on there now are the same people that we followed 4 years ago when we started it. And we just wanted to follow and create a community of like-minded anglers that were out there doing it for the right reasons. So that's kind of how it all started. And then through that, it just evolved. And I started making a lot of different edits for it and videos. And eventually we realized we had to take it on the YouTube. So I had my YouTube channel, which I'd had for 10 years, but been inactive on for the past 2 or 3, because like I told you, I really didn't want it just to be about myself. So this was the perfect opportunity. And I just, where I'm like, all right, dude, let's just change the name of my channel to Uncle Larry's. We'll rebrand it and we'll start putting new videos up under Uncle Larry Outdoors. So that's in short terms, that is the history of it.
Well, that's awesome. I had never knew the backstory behind it. I didn't know it had that kind of depth to it. So that makes it like 10,000 times cooler. And I love that you've adopted that and like kept that as like, I don't know, you didn't let the name evolve. So like the roots go back to a really cool place. You mentioned how everybody kind of has that person in their life that, I don't know, at the very least led you to the water. And whether you found your way from there, I think that's the least that, I don't know, a mentor can do is just provide opportunity, to get there. Whether it could just be the person that drove you to the water and set and let you out the car. Yeah. But just like, I think we all have that person that we appreciate that at least afforded the opportunity. And, obviously some people had a much stronger mentor, but it's pretty cool that you've run with that name. And then, whether y'all realize it, and I'm sure you do realize it, the content you put out, I don't know, in keeping with the evolution of information sharing and inspiring other people is ultimately like now that source of content you'll have may be, I don't know, educating, inspiring, entertaining, all of those different things to other people to get out and fish. Because I think, and I know we kept mentioning COVID a few times. I mean, I've read, at least, and I've seen, there was just a massive boom in fishing during that time, which is pretty cool that something like that sort of halted everybody in their tracks from being, I don't know, productive in the economic sense to be more productive in the mental and spiritual sense, which is way more important.
Sure.
But it's awesome what you're doing. I like that you've evolved this thing, but you stayed, I don't know, what is the term for it? You stayed true to the original origins of it. I find myself kind of in the same thing with this podcast thing. I started a blog in 2011, and then the name was Boundless Pursuit. I just decided to keep the name of it. But, as time goes on, it seems like people nowadays don't want to read, maybe not want to read as much. So it's all right, well, I'm starting to kind of realize, and I love writing. I'll never stop writing. I do it more for myself than I do anybody else. But, I think as outdoorsmen, you kind of have this obligation to sort of push the sport forward, whether it's through entertainment or educating, and it's writing, it's video, it's podcasts. I'm just doing this to, I don't know. It's just fun to actually talk to people because, Instagram becomes so limited and you don't know what somebody's like. I've learned I've heard so many awesome stories, live stories doing this. I'm I didn't expect to get all this out of this whole podcast thing. I thought I'd just hear some cool fishing stories. So it's sort of transcended beyond that, but
yeah, that's really it, man. It's at the end of the day, I can speak for all of us. I think me specifically, this is fishing and being outdoors has been my whole existence for as long as I can remember. That is my life, and it means so much to me in way deeper. And the fish is just the least end of the spectrum to me when it comes to fishing. So yeah, it's just that's always been the goal because now social media has gotten so big and the fishing space has gotten so big. There's a lot of kids that are, their Uncle Larry could be the internet, could be a YouTube channel.
100%.
And I've looked at that and I've wanted to make sure that whatever I end up doing and we end up doing, when a kid watches our videos, they get into it for the right reasons and they see that you could go have an adventure. It's a big part of Uncle Larry's too. So you can have an adventure and go catch a big fish wherever you're from. We're from New Jersey, New York City. We did a lot of fishing in the city, catching big fish in New York. I know kids that go out there and take the subway, an hour-long subway ride just to get to Central Park and go catch a big bass in Central Park. It's if they can do it, no one has any excuse, and that's really, we've been trying to preach that from the beginning. So if that's the way that it's being perceived today, then I'm definitely happy.
Oh yeah. Well, social media is, there's a lot of bad parts on social media, obviously. I remember I was in college, I think, when Facebook was starting. I remember when you had to be in college to even get on Facebook. Other people, you had to be in a school to even do it. It was different. But back then they called it social networking sites. It wasn't called social media. It's somewhere along the way it changed from being something you use to meet and network with other people to somewhere that you just, I don't know, it just
promote yourself or something else.
Yeah, it's got to start kind of circling. It needs to start circling back to that networking thing where you're actually knowing the person. And Instagram's really zapped a lot of that out. It's you can see people's snapshot of their highlight reel. You don't know jack diddly crap about who they are. Might be a murderer.
You don't even know if they really like to fish. Sheesh.
Yeah. Really, really hard to tell. Well, there's some folks you can you hate to say it because I've been guilty of it where I'll look at somebody on there, I'm I bet that person's a piece of shit. But then I catch myself, I'm I can't do that. That person could be I don't know what they're going through. That could be a great
You
person.
try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, got to be careful with it, but and especially as it pertains to fishermen, and no fisherman's trying to share information and talk to a stranger. Like, somebody messages you out of the blue on Instagram. You're like, all right, what are you're trying to steal my spots? I mean, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
So it's so hard to like get a good relationship going with somebody on something like Instagram, but I mean, but there are times like you'll meet those cool people along the way, and heaven forbid you end up getting to link up. Like at the end of this month, I mean, by the time this drops, it will have already happened. But I'm going out to Idaho at the end of this month to fish with a guy that I met on the internet, like through networking, through another guy that I fish with who's fished with this guy, and it's like, got to get back to that. But I want to check off a few things that I have on here, and you mentioned earlier the Mike Iaconelli thing, because I remember I was like, oh my gosh, like how'd y'all pull that off? Like how did that come about? Because that was a pretty cool opportunity.
Oh yeah, that was all E, man.
Yeah, man. I mean,
and you said you had worked on the podcast or something.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, all right. I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can. So I've been doing the YouTube thing all of high school. I went to college for film and video, because I kind of got brainwashed into the concept of, oh, well, you can actually be a fisherman for your life. And that's what everyone around me was doing. Everyone was going to college and then working in the city. That was like the thing, right? So I did that for about a year, and I absolutely hated it. And I had an existential crisis moment with myself where I'm like, what am I doing? This is just not who I am. I need to go back to New Jersey and, make videos and pursue and fish and like be outside. And, long story short, I ended up emailing at the time One Rod One Reel, who was this is 2014. This guy, he was just coming up in the YouTube space, but I noticed him because I'd been on YouTube fishing for so long, and I'd seen the views and the attention that he was getting. I'd never seen anything like that before, and I realized he lived in Maryland. So I hit him up. I'm like, yo, let's fish together. We end up fishing together. I end up getting a message from this kid, John Horvat, who went to Rowan University in South Jersey, which is the school that Mike Iaconelli went to. And he messages me like, hey, man, I saw that you were from Jersey too. You want to meet up and fish together? But just going back to like what you were saying about it really being a networking thing. So I'm like, yeah, dude, fish together. And I end up fishing with John, and he's telling me, yo, so I go to Rowan. Mike Iaconelli went to Rowan. He just came to our school, and he wants to start a bass fishing team at Rowan. And, first of all, for me, like, growing up in New Jersey, being a bass fisherman, it's like Mike Iaconelli's like, if you were growing up in New England and wanted to be a quarterback, that's like Tom Brady, that's like, to us. So I'm like, instantly, I'm like, okay, I've always wanted to get into like the college fishing thing. So this would be cool to get in with that opportunity to get back to New Jersey. And to potentially, who knows, maybe develop a relationship with Mike, because that would just be really cool. So fast forward to like August, I make all the transfer things that I got to do to get back to Jersey. And John hits me up because we're supposed to live together. And he's like, yo, dude, the school starts in like 2 weeks. And we still got a place to live. And I just left up to him. I'm like, yo, first place you find, I'm good with it. Certain rent price, whatever. And he finds this little terrible looking blue house that we move into with a couple other people, and coincidence, if you want to use that word, move in next door to Brian Stockel. Shout out to Brian. It's an amazing friend to this day. But Brian, he's basically like, so if you got Eric and Johnny, you got Brian and Mike. He's Mike's like lifelong friend. He's known him forever, fished with him forever, and does Ike Live, started Ike Live with Mike back in 2014. And I moved next door to him, he's my next door neighbor. So I developed a relationship with him. I developed a relationship with Mike because we started the Rowan fishing team, John and I. He was the president, I was the vice president. And then Mike hits me up one day and he's like, yo, dude, do you want to fish a tournament with me out of your boat? I have still to this day, it's not functioning at the moment, but I have a bass tracker. And, he asked me, you want to fish a tournament out of your boat? And I'm just like, trying to keep my composure, like, keep it cool. No, see, I might have some work.
Let me check my calendar. See where I can fit you in.
Yeah, so we do that, and of course, I'm like, at the time, I'm 20 years old. I'm like starstruck at the time, but I did my best to like really just treat him like one of the boys, and I think looking back, I'm sure he appreciated that. And that day on the boat, he was just like, "Hey, have you ever had like an internship before?" And that's pretty much it. I started out just doing the Ike Live stuff, being on the podcast, doing their social media, and then that kind of gravitated eventually towards me filming for him and working for his company, Professional Edge Fishing and Bass University and all that. And I did that for 3 years, and then it's a friendship to this day. And it's been that period of my life was very helpful moving forward, trying to build our own brand, Uncle Larry Outdoors, just having the knowledge of how it works and also getting that much needed experience behind the camera, filming for people, which I'd already done a lot of to that point, but just kind of doing it as a job for the first time was very helpful for me. So that was a pivotal point in my existence, and happy that at the end of the day, what's cool about all that is it's just like they're just friendships. Like Mike's a friend, Brian's a friend. We were just up there fishing with them in the Catskills for brown trout, like 6 of us. And I had a moment where I just had to step back and be like, look at where this shit has got to, man. Pretty awesome. Yeah, pretty cool. Really.
No, that's really cool. I imagine the, inspiration juices were probably flowing like crazy after that, or like the motivation. But, it's funny you mentioned like you tried your best to just treat him like one of the guys. Like we were talking about earlier, it's probably really hard to know. I mean, it's hard to know when you get those messages out of the blue, what people's intentions are. And sometimes you can kind of like read between the you can normally tell if somebody's just trying to get information out of you. And then you can sort of read if somebody's earnest and genuinely just wants to learn. And you have the knowledge and the ability to pass it on to that person. But for somebody like him, he probably gets 100,000 messages a day from people. And so just approaching somebody like that, approaching somebody like I feel like you should approach anybody like they're just one of the guys. It's just easier to, I don't know, sort of like what I talked about before we even started this. Don't just talk normal. Just be normal. People can see right through that bullshit. But anyway, it looks like y'all have like really made a lot of these things happen. I mean, fate has brought you to the opportunities. That's this crazy thing. You always wonder how many times like windows of opportunities pass you by and you're just, I don't know, too pessimistic to be able to see them. Your vision's not clear enough because you've got this idea on like what life's supposed to be. You're supposed to work a 9 to 5. Fishing will never work. It'll never happen. So it's like when you get that mentality, you're blind to all these windows that are flying by to get off on.
I'm so grateful that somehow we were able to see past that growing up in New Jersey, especially because like if you think like, I talk to people down here that are like, oh yeah, bro, no one in my high school fished. And I'm looking at them sideways like Florida, like talk about New Jersey in the early mid 2000s. Cause now, fishing has almost become like cool in the sense that like maybe the skate culture was in the 90s, early 2000s. It's really, and I will credit social media for doing that.
Oh, 100%.
Back when we were growing up, I can most assure you that it was not that way, So, and you're so impressionable at that time, but just to be able to look past that, to understand that like all these people are wrong, like no, this is the thing, I'm just I don't even know how. I'm grateful that fishing really is that powerful of a vessel if you really love it.
Yeah, cool. To that point, like it took the pandemic for me specifically to even like see that. It's like you said, you get caught up in like what you think you're supposed to be doing with life. You know what I mean? The pathway that has been laid out for you, and you just see what everyone else, that you associate with, family and friends. It's just like, oh no, I guess this is just how it works. And it's like, I guess it took that time for me to have all that that time by myself, you know what I mean? Like with myself in my mind and really like comprehending the possibilities of, I guess, like what the fuck is actually out there? Like what can I really do with my life? Like, does it really have to be this way? You know what I mean? And then things just started to culminate. The more time I spent outside, the more I would just run into, you know, different figures that I think would just reassured me that I was on the right path. You know what I mean? Like I went out there on my own and kind of peeped this veil, and you just meet people along the way that just let you know without a reasonable doubt that you're doing the right thing and that you got to keep going. And I think that was one of the things too that kind of opened my mind to reality.
You know, you have also been blessed with charming good looks, you know what I mean? So it's like such that now you've got this budding modeling career going on that I've been seeing. So you've got an advantage that we ugly people don't have, you know, them charming good looks. Now you're on the Sims website, so another thing to check off. But when I saw that, I'm like, what the heck? I mean, you got Bill Dance following you the other day. You got the modeling career going on with Sims. So how did the Sims thing happen? How did they I mean, where did that come from?
Yeah, so we really just made some connections. The guy Bud Cipollari, who Eric is real good friends with, he does a lot of video work for Sims, and he basically just connected us with them. You know what I mean? In one way or another, they came across, you know, what we were doing, and you know, were interested, and we talked, and they reached out to me and was like, you know, we wanted to use it for like, you know, just basically some modeling stuff, you know what I mean, for their for a new line that they had coming out. But you know, up until that point, you know, we had it was really just a casual thing, you know what I mean? I just made some relationships through Bud with, you know, the producer and the director over there, and you know, they liked what the heck we were doing, and you know, liked, I guess, how I looked, and he went to use me for some shots.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's all that I'm.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I got to ask about that. It's pretty awesome, but man, I know we're getting a little short on time. You know, me, I got like my bedtime. You know what I mean? I got to get up at 4 a.m. But man, y'all's trajectory. I mean, both of yours. Just the whole thing you have going on together is awesome to watch. So, you know, I have all the confidence and that y'all will stay the course or stay on the path. And you've already, in a very short period of time, it sounds like, the timeline is what catches me off like guard. I didn't realize all this was so, you know, pretty recent. But you know, the growth in a short period of time is pretty motivating and awesome to see. So hope y'all will stay on that. Now, I know we've mentioned a lot of like viral videos, incredible catches. We didn't even talk about a lot of the saltwater stuff. Maybe we'll have to do this another time. It's like, so
yeah, like an Uncle Larry's.
We'll get Johnny.
We got the whole gang.
Yeah, because there's so much more to talk about. But but people who are listening that want to see this stuff, like where, I don't know, just drop somewhere they could find you at, whether it's your Instagrams or YouTube, anything like that. And I'm going to throw it up on the screen. If you've seen any of these little videos I make, I try to put them on the screen. I put them in the caption. I want to draw people, you know, I want people that I like and that I enjoy, like my friends and stuff, to like funnel into these other awesome people that I've met along the way. So how can I funnel them towards y'all?
Well, Uncle Larry Outdoors, that's the funnel. Uncle Larry Outdoors. Type in Uncle Larry Outdoors, and then you can go and do your explorations from there. We're on Instagram, YouTube. We got a TikTok now, you know, but not our choice, but you know, we
for the business.
For the business, it's all business. We recognize, you know, it's 2023. We got to get with the times.
Yeah, those are the two big ones I'd say. Right
Instagram
now.
and YouTube.
Instagram and YouTube. Where, you know, we might get it back on Facebook eventually for the business.
For the business.
YouTube and Instagram are the ones that we enjoy putting content up as of now. So yeah, Uncle Larry Outdoors, straight to the point. That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. People definitely got to check it out because y'all got a great, like, diverse collections of kinds of fish, videos, photos. everything. It's awesome stuff. And you're only and I guess you're in Tampa, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I'm a Southwest Florida guy myself. So next time I'm coming through Tampa, I'll let you know. We can meet up. We can.
Yeah, man.
We can meet on. Yeah, we can do the both. You know, some of my favorite bowfin spots are up in Tampa, so we can meet on. We can meet on. I promise. Oh yeah, I promise I'm not trying to steal your spot, so we can meet on. We can meet. We can meet on neutral ground. But yeah, we can go to some of these hell ponds that y'all trek into and try for the first time. I'll be happy to join along on a scouting mission. Cheap kayaks and all, but
I like the sound of that, brother.
Yeah, but for sure, we'll be in touch after this because I come up to Tampa pretty often. I'll probably come up in April. I'd say almost undoubtedly I'll come up to Tampa at least once in April, and I'll give you a heads up. Y'all may y'all may be off doing something else, but maybe the stars will align and we'll.
Oh yeah.
Eventually, we'll meet up.
We'll make something happen for sure. Definitely, for sure.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time. We'll have to be in touch. And again, I'm glad it didn't cut off on us on the second half of this.
We made it through, and hopefully everything's good with the.
Yeah. Now I gotta end this call and frantically pray to the Lord above the first half of the conversation can be salvaged.
Yeah. You know, if not, then we'll run it back and we'll do it the right way with the whole.
We'll have a good second half.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Take it easy, brother.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Boundless Pursuit podcast. If you enjoyed this show, your feedback, comments, and reviews are very important to me. Also, this podcast is just one element to a much bigger content outlet. I urge you to head over to www.haverodswilltravel.com where you'll find audio, visual, and written editorial content. That is 3 dimensions of awesome fishing content brought to you by a very dynamic team of anglers. I hope that you'll tune in next week as we continue to build this program and have interesting and skilled anglers each Thursday. Thank you for listening.